Today, we're about to attempt what Bugatti think is impossible.
Can't do that in a garage. There's just a few places in the world with the right equipment and only a few people in the world with the right training to be able to do that.
Every headline this week is screaming the same thing. Jeff Bezos has somehow inserted himself into the wildest Bugatti story of the year, and Mat Armstrong, the YouTuber rebuilding a wrecked Chiron in his Leicester workshop, is the man at the center of it all. Bugatti did not see this coming. Their chief executive did not see this coming. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why. The billionaire who slid into the direct messages. Alex Gonzalez, the young Miami Forex trader who crashed one of 60 Bugatti Chiron Pure Sport, was getting nowhere with Bugatti. The company had quietly locked the vehicle identification number on his car, which meant no dealer anywhere in the world could sell him a single major part. He was sitting on a wrecked €3 million hypercar that had been declared a total loss, and the manufacturer had basically slammed the door in his face. So Alex did what any frustrated young millionaire with a phone and a following would do. He went public. He posted an ultimatum on social media saying that Bugatti had 24 hours to unblacklist his car, or he and Mat Armstrong would simply 3D print all the parts themselves. It was loud, it was reckless, and it was probably never going to actually work. But what happened next is the kind of moment that only happens in 2026. His phone buzzed. A direct message. The opening line read, "Hey man, Bugatti chief executive here." It was Mat Armstrong himself. The Croatian billionaire who runs Bugatti Rimac, the man whose net worth had just been estimated at €1.74 billion, was personally typing into the inbox of a 24-year-old Forex influencer from Miami. And he was not just saying hello, he was negotiating. Rimac told Alex straight up that you cannot 3D print parts for a Bugatti. He explained that the gearbox and the carbon fiber monocoque were probably damaged, and those cannot be 3D printed, just like the lights and the body panels. But then he said the line that nobody saw coming. He told Alex, "We want to help you do this in the most cost-efficient way. And if the monocoque and the gearbox do not need replacing, this will cost a lot less than everyone is talking about." That single message changed the entire shape of the story. Because up until that point, the public narrative was simple. Bugatti was the bad guy, Mat Armstrong was the underdog, and the wrecked Chiron was going to either rot or get rebuilt by sheer stubbornness alone. But now, the chief executive of Bugatti himself was offering to help. Quietly, privately, in a direct message that was never meant to become public knowledge. And that, my friend, is just the beginning of what Mat Armstrong did next. The public face versus the private hand. Here is where things get really interesting, and I want you to pay close attention because this is the contradiction that nobody in the car community has properly explained yet. While Mat Armstrong was privately offering help, his public position was the exact opposite. A few weeks after that direct message, he posted a long video on his official social media accounts explaining why Bugatti could not officially support the rebuild. His words were careful, and they were chosen well. He said there has been a lot of talk about Bugatti service, repair, and maintenance costs online, and most of what you hear is simply not true. He said there are only a few people in the world with the right training to separate the rear subframe from the monocoque. And then he delivered the line that became the headline everywhere. He said, "We just do not think it is safe. I would love to support it, but it is not the right thing to do." That video racked up nearly 7 million views in 4 days. Every car channel covered it. Every comment section turned into a debate. Mat Armstrong became the villain in the story, the corporate executive trying to crush a working-class YouTuber from England. But the people screaming about him on the internet had no idea about the direct messages. They had no idea that the same man telling the world the rebuild was unsafe had also told Alex Gonzalez privately that he wanted to help do this in the most cost-efficient way possible. So, which Mat Armstrong is the real one? The public executive is defending his brand, or the private operator quietly opening doors? The answer, and I think you are going to find this fascinating, is that he is both. And the reason he can be both has everything to do with how Bugatti is actually structured right now, who sits above him on the corporate ladder, and a recent deal in April 2026 that almost nobody outside of automotive finance circles is talking about. But before we get to the boardroom move that changes everything, you need to understand what happened next on the workshop floor. Because while Mat Armstrong was playing both sides of the public versus private game, Mat Armstrong was doing something inside his Leicester workshop that Bugatti said was impossible. And when I tell you what he pulled off, you will understand why the chief executive started watching every single one of his videos. The impossible job in Leicester. Mat Armstrong is 32 years old. He grew up in Leicester, England. Before YouTube made him famous, he was a professional BMX rider. He has rebuilt McLarens, Lamborghinis, Ferraris, and even Marcus Rashford's wrecked Rolls-Royce Mansory. He has a Bugatti logo tattooed on his leg, which tells you everything you need to know about how personal this project is for him. So when Alex Gonzalez called him from Miami and asked him to take on the impossible, Mat said yes before he had fully thought it through. The car arrived at his workshop in pieces. The front end was destroyed, the hood was missing, the airbags had deployed, and there were cracks visible in the carbon fiber tub. Bugatti had already sent a factory technician all the way from France to inspect it, and the technician had declared the car a total loss. The insurance company agreed. The repair quote came back at $1.7 million. Everyone with any official authority had said the same thing. This car is finished. But Mat did not care. He started by splitting the car in half, separating the engine and gearbox from the carbon monocoque. Mat Armstrong had publicly said that only 2 places in the entire world had the expertise to do this. Mat did it in his Leicester workshop by carefully removing bolts on what turned out to be a modular design. He used 14 titanium bolts to put it back together when the time came. Then came the gearbox mount, which was the part that Bugatti said could not be replaced without their official tools. Mat 3D scanned the original broken mount, turned the scan into a computer-aided design model, and then had the new part computer numerical control machined from a solid block of aluminum. He warned on camera that if the crank sensor positions were off by even a tiny margin, the engine could run lumpy, not start at all, or fail to produce the correct boost pressure. But the part fit perfectly. He brought in a fabricator named Bob from a place called the Machine Shop. Bob built replacement radiators from scratch. He spent roughly 60 hours hand fabricating a custom front crash bar that bolted directly to the chassis legs, replicating mounting points and thread patterns without ever seeing an original to copy from. Mat sourced airbags from an Audi A3. He fixed a pinched coolant overflow pipe with a section of brake hose. And then, after months of work, he hit the start button on the W16 engine for the first time. It fired up. It ran. It held temperature. Carfab. And Mat Armstrong became the man who did what Bugatti said could not be done. The numbers that made Bugatti blink. While the workshop drama was unfolding in Leicester, something else was happening behind closed doors at Bugatti Rimac headquarters in Croatia. The numbers tell the story better than any press release could. Mat Armstrong's video, titled "Attempting the Job, Bugatti Told Me," was impossible. pulled 12.1 million views. His earlier video on the same project pulled 10.8 million. His startup video pulled 8.7 million. His main channel grew from about 6.1 million subscribers in February 2026 to roughly 6.9 million by the middle of the year. That is more than 500,000 new subscribers in 3 months, all driven by this one saga. For Bugatti, that level of attention is a double-edged sword. On one hand, the publicity is enormous. Bugatti is suddenly the most talked about hypercar brand on the planet, and not because of a new model launch. On the other hand, every single one of those videos is reinforcing the narrative that Bugatti is the company that blacklists customers, refuses to sell parts, and tries to crush independent repairs. That is brand damage that no marketing budget can fix. Somewhere along the way, the math changed. The original repair quote of $1.7 million came down. Bugatti reportedly unblacklisted the vehicle identification number. They came back with a revised offer of around $600,000 to do the work officially. Alex Gonzalez declined the offer because by that point, Mat Armstrong was already deep into the rebuild, and the story had become bigger than the car itself. Think about what that price cut actually means. Bugatti went from saying this repair will cost $1.7 million to saying we can do it for around $600,000. That is more than $1 million knocked off the quote. The only thing that changed in between was the public pressure created by Mat Armstrong's videos and the private conversations Mate Remick was having in those direct messages. The billionaire was not just watching from the sidelines. He was actively moving pieces on the board. Now I have to address something, because if you have been on social media in the last few weeks, the Jeff Bezos rumor and why it spread, you have almost certainly seen the headlines claiming that Jeff Bezos has personally stepped in to back Mat Armstrong. The thumbnails are everywhere. The short-form videos are racking up millions of views. Some of them claim Bezos sent parts. Some claim he made a phone call to Bugatti. Some claim he is going to buy the finished car once it hits the road again. Here is the honest truth. There is no verified evidence that Jeff Bezos has done any of those things. I went looking through every major automotive outlet, every interview Mat Armstrong has given on podcasts and other channels, and every public statement from Bezos himself. The closest real connection is that Bezos was reportedly seen with a Bugatti gifted at the Ambani wedding in India. And that story got mixed up online with the Mat Armstrong saga until the two became one fake headline. So why did the rumor catch fire the way it did? I think the answer says something about how badly people wanted this story to have a fairy tale ending. The idea of the richest man on earth swooping in to back a working-class YouTuber against a luxury brand is exactly the kind of narrative people want to share. It feels right, even when it is not true. And the algorithms reward exactly that kind of emotional satisfaction. But the real billionaire intervention in this story is not coming from Seattle. It is coming from Croatia. It is coming from the office of the man who built his first electric car in his garage in 2009, after converting a 1984 BMW 3 Series. The shocking move Bugatti did not see coming was not made by Jeff Bezos. It was made by Mate Remick himself. And there is one more piece of the puzzle that explains why he could afford to make it. The Porsche deal that changed the math. In April 2026, something happened in the boardrooms of Stuttgart and Sveta Nedelya that almost nobody in the car community properly noticed. Porsche agreed to sell its 45% stake in Bugatti Remick. The Remick Group partnered with two investment firms called HOF Capital and Blue 5 Capital, took full operational control of Bugatti. There was no big press tour. There was no flashy announcement video. It was a quiet financial story that got completely buried under the noise of the Mat Armstrong saga. But it might be the single most important piece of context for understanding why Mat Armstrong was free to play both sides of this fight the entire time it was unfolding. Think about what that deal actually means in plain English. Up until that point, Mat Armstrong was the chief executive of Bugatti, yes, but he was answering to Porsche, and Porsche was answering to Volkswagen, the massive German automotive conglomerate sitting at the top of the chain. The corporate hierarchy meant that any decision about how to handle a high-profile rebuild project, especially one going viral across millions of views, had to consider how it would look to the German parent company. That is the kind of structure that produces cautious, defensive public statements about safety and liability and brand protection, even when the chief executive personally wants to roll up his sleeves and help the YouTuber on the other end of the phone. Once Porsche sold its stake, that pressure changed completely. Mat Armstrong was no longer the middle manager defending a position dictated by a German boardroom thousands of kilometers away. He was the operator with full control of his own company. And that is exactly why his private direct messages to Alex Gonzalez and his public statements on social media feel like they come from two different people speaking two different languages. They essentially did, because the corporate ground was literally shifting underneath his feet the entire time this saga was playing out in front of the world. Mat Armstrong has said publicly more than once that his motivation comes from wanting Bugattis to still be on the road 50 or even 100 years from now. He has said he watches Mat Armstrong's videos personally, every single one of them. He has said he would love to support the project if circumstances allowed it. These are not the words of a corporate enemy trying to shut a YouTuber down. They are the words of a man who is quietly making sure the world's most famous independent Bugatti rebuild does not fail, while also protecting his brand in public, the only way the old corporate structure ever allowed him to. And that, when you finally see it clearly, is the shocking move Bugatti did not see coming. Their own chief executive made it. What happens next? So where does this leave us as we sit here trying to make sense of everything? Mat Armstrong has the W16 engine running. He has the gearbox mounted back into place. He has the radiators built from scratch, the airbags installed and wired in, and the front crash bar fabricated entirely by hand on a workshop bench in Leicester. The car is closer to being road legal than anyone, including the engineers at Bugatti themselves, ever thought was possible when the wreck first arrived in England. Mat Armstrong himself appeared on the Cars and Money podcast with Rob Moore and Carl Hartley earlier this year, and he described his relationship with Mat Armstrong as something like the Messi and Ronaldo rivalry, cordial and respectful in private, but constantly sensationalized and twisted by the internet into something it never actually was. He also dropped a quiet hint during that interview that I think is genuinely worth repeating right now. He said he believes there is someone else behind Mat Armstrong's public words because the tone has noticeably changed over the months. At the time he said it, the Porsche deal had not yet been publicly announced anywhere. Now, looking back with the full picture in front of us, you can connect every single one of the dots. The tone changed because the ownership changed. The pressure changed because the boardroom changed. And the billionaire who was publicly opposing the rebuild on camera was privately making the entire thing possible through direct messages and quiet phone calls. What happens to the car next is still genuinely uncertain. It is not yet road legal anywhere. The carbon fiber monocoque has not been officially certified by any independent body. The insurance and registration questions are still wide open. But the bigger question is no longer whether the rebuild will succeed in the workshop. It is whether Bugatti, under its brand-new ownership structure, will eventually do what nobody on Earth expected and officially bless the finished car when Mat finally drives it out. If that happens, Mat Armstrong will go down in history as the chief executive who quietly changed how hypercars get repaired forever. And Mat Armstrong, the BMX rider from Leicester, with a Bugatti tattoo permanently inked on his leg, will be the man who made him do it. What do you think about Mat Armstrong playing both sides of this story? And do you believe Bugatti will eventually certify the finished car? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.